1977, Warner Brothers Executive Suite, Burbank, California. Clint Eastwood sits across from three studio executives who are about to offer him the role of a lifetime. The biggest superhero movie ever made. Unlimited budget. Global fame. A character every actor in Hollywood is desperate to play. Superman. And in the next 90 seconds, Clint will say no. Not politely. Not with regret. Just no. And that single word will define the next 40 years of his career in ways nobody in that room can imagine. To understand what happens in that office, you need to understand where Clint Eastwood is in 1977. He's 47 years old. He's been in Hollywood for 20 years. He started as a contract player at Universal, making $75 a week, playing bit parts in B-movies nobody remembers. For 6 years, he did television. Rawhide, a cattle drive western that taught him two things: how to work fast and how to disappear into silence. Then in 1964, everything changed. Sergio Leone, an Italian director nobody in Hollywood respected, offered Clint a role in a low-budget western shooting in Spain. A fistful of dollars. The script was thin. The budget was $200,000. The character had no name, just a poncho, a cigar, and a squint. Every American actor turned it down. It was beneath them. A European imitation of American westerns. A joke. But Clint read the script and saw something else. He saw a character who didn't explain himself, who didn't need to be liked, who existed in silence and violence and absolute self-control. He took the job for $15,000. The film made $14 million. More importantly, it created an archetype. The man with no name, the anti-hero, the gunslinger who killed without remorse and walked away without looking back. It wasn't heroic. It was honest. Clint made 2 more films with Leone, for a few dollars more, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, each one bigger, more brutal, more iconic. By 1967, Clint Eastwood was an international star, not because he played heroes, but because he played men. Complicated, dangerous, silent men. He returned to America and became a different kind of star, not the charming leading man, not the romantic hero, the man who did his own stunts, directed his own films, and refused to play anything that felt false. Coogan's Bluff, Where Eagles Dare, Paint Your Wagon, each role different, each one a rejection of what Hollywood wanted him to be. Then in 1971, Dirty Harry, a film about a cop who breaks every rule to stop a killer. Critics called it fascist. Audiences loved it. Clint didn't care about either reaction. He cared that Harry Callahan was real. A man pushed to the edge by a system that protected criminals and punished cops who actually did their jobs. It was uncomfortable. It was meant to be. By 1977, Clint is one of the biggest stars in the world. But he's restless. He's been acting for 20 years, and he's starting to understand that acting isn't enough. He wants to direct. He wants control. He wants to tell stories that matter, stories that show the cost of violence, the complexity of morality, the impossibility of being good in a world that rewards the ruthless. He's also tired. Tired of the fame, the expectations, the pressure to be larger than life. Clint Eastwood doesn't want to be larger than life. He wants to be human-sized, real, flawed, mortal. That's when Warner Brothers calls. They have a project, the biggest project in studio history. Superman, Richard Donner directing. Marlon Brando as Jor-El. A budget that keeps growing. $50 million, maybe $60 million. Nobody knows. It doesn't matter. This is going to be the event of the decade, and they want Clint Eastwood to be Superman, to be the face of the franchise, to carry the weight of American mythology on his shoulders, to wear the cape, to fly, to save the world. The first meeting happens on a Tuesday morning. Clint arrives on time. He always arrives on time. Punctuality is respect. He walks into the executive suite wearing jeans and a simple shirt. No entourage, no agent, just Clint. The executives are nervous. They've prepared a pitch. Charts, concept art, projected box office numbers. They're going to overwhelm him with the scale, the ambition, the potential. But before they can start, Clint speaks. Tell me about the character. The lead executive, a man named Alan, leans forward. He's an alien from another planet. His world is destroyed. He's sent to Earth as a baby, raised by farmers in Kansas. Discovers he has incredible powers: flight, strength, invulnerability. He decides to use those powers to protect humanity. Clint listens. His face doesn't change. He doesn't nod, doesn't smile, doesn't react. He just listens. When Alan finishes, there's silence. The executives wait. Clint is thinking, calculating, measuring something they can't see. What does he want? Alan blinks. I'm sorry? Superman, what does he want? What's his internal conflict? Alan looks at the other executives. Well, he wants to save people, to protect the innocent, to be a hero. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Because he has these incredible powers and he feels responsible for using them. Clint nods slowly. So he's perfect. He's invulnerable, morally certain, and he always wins. Alan smiles, relieved. Exactly. He's the ultimate hero, the symbol of hope. Clint stands up. Then I'm not interested. The room goes silent. Alan's smile fades. Mr. Eastwood, I don't think you understand the scope of this project. This isn't just a film. This is a cultural moment. Superman is an American icon. Playing him would cement your legacy as one of the great actors of your generation. I understand what you're offering, and I'm saying no. But why? This is the role every actor in Hollywood wants. We've had calls from Paul Newman's agent, Robert Redford's people. Steve McQueen asked us to consider him. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. Clint walks to the window. Outside, the studio lot stretches out. Sound stages, office buildings, the machinery of Hollywood churning. He speaks without turning around. I don't play perfect men. Perfect men don't exist. And if they did, they'd be boring. Superman doesn't struggle. He doesn't doubt. He doesn't fail. He's a fantasy. And I don't do fantasy. Alan stands up, his voice rising slightly. With respect, Mr. Eastwood, you've built your career on fantasies. The Man with No Name is a fantasy. Dirty Harry is a fantasy. You've been playing larger-than-life characters for a decade. Clint turns around. No, I've been playing men who pretend to be larger than life, but are actually drowning in consequences. The Man with No Name killed people, and it destroyed him. You see it in his eyes. Every death weighs. Dirty Harry broke the rules, and it cost him his humanity. These aren't fantasies. These are warnings. Superman isn't a warning. He's a god in a cape. And gods don't interest me. Men interest me. Broken, conflicted, desperate men who are trying to do the right thing and failing most of the time. That's worth exploring. Superman isn't. Alan's face is red. He's been dismissed and he knows it, but he makes one last attempt. Mr. Eastwood, we're prepared to offer you $4 million up front, plus a percentage of the gross. You could make $10 million from this film, maybe more. Clint looks at him. Then he says something that will be repeated in Hollywood for the next 40 years. I've already got money. What I need is roles that don't insult my intelligence. He walks out. The meeting is over. The executives sit in stunned silence. They've just been told that the biggest superhero movie in history isn't good enough for Clint Eastwood, and they don't know whether to be angry or impressed. Alan picks up the phone, calls the next name on the list. Within a month, they'll cast Christopher Reeve, a 24-year-old unknown from Juilliard who will become synonymous with Superman, who will wear the cape with grace and charm and hope. But that's not Clint's path. Clint walks out of Warner Brothers and drives to his office in Malpaso Productions, the production company he founded to control his own work. His assistant asks how the meeting went. They offered me Superman. And I said no. Why? Because I'd rather make something that matters. Over the next 2 years, while Superman is in production, Clint makes 3 films, Every Which Way But Loose, a comedy about a trucker and his orangutan. Critics hate it, audiences love it. It makes $85 million. Then Escape from Alcatraz, a prison drama directed by Don Siegel. It's tense, claustrophobic, real. Then he starts preparing for Bronco Billy, a film about a broken man pretending to be a cowboy in a traveling Wild West show. None of these are Superman. None of them have the budget, the spectacle, the cultural weight. But all of them are about something Superman isn't. They're about failure, about men who are trying to be heroes and mostly failing, about the gap between who we want to be and who we actually are. Superman premieres in December 1978. It's a massive success. Critics praise it. Audiences line up around the block. Christopher Reeve becomes a star overnight. The film makes $300 million worldwide. It spawns 3 sequels. It defines the superhero genre for a generation. And Clint Eastwood doesn't regret his decision for a single second. Because while Superman is making money, Clint is making something else. He's building a career that will outlast any single role. He's becoming a director who tells stories about the cost of violence, the complexity of morality, the impossibility of redemption. In 1980, he directs Bronco Billy. It's a box office disappointment, but critics see something. They see a filmmaker emerging. In 1982, he makes Firefox, a thriller about a pilot stealing a Soviet jet. It's technically ambitious, but emotionally cold. Clint learns from it. He learns that spectacle without soul is empty. That action without consequence is just noise. In 1985, he makes Pale Rider, a Western, his return to the genre that made him famous. But it's different now, darker, more spiritual. The gunslinger isn't a hero, he's death itself, a ghost haunting the living. It's not entertainment, it's a meditation on violence and faith and whether any of us can be forgiven for the things we've done. In 1988, he makes Bird, a biographical drama about Charlie Parker, the jazz musician who revolutionized music and destroyed himself with drugs. It's the least commercial film Clint has ever made. Most studios wouldn't have financed it. But Clint uses his leverage, his power, his Superman money he didn't take to make a film about a black musician that most of America has forgotten. Bird doesn't make money. It wins Clint respect. Real respect. Not the respect you get for playing a superhero. The respect you earn by taking risks, by telling stories that don't have easy answers, by using your platform to remember people who deserve to be remembered. In 1992, everything changes. Unforgiven, a Western about an aging killer trying to do one last job. It's brutal, honest, unforgiving. It doesn't glorify violence. It shows violence as ugly, necessary, and soul-destroying. Clint plays William Money, a man who killed people for money and can never wash that blood off. The film wins 4 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Best Editing. Clint stands on stage at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion holding his Oscar. He's 62 years old. He's been in Hollywood for 40 years, and he finally has the industry's respect. In his acceptance speech, he says 12 words. This is for all the people who worked on this film. Thank you. That's it. No long speech, no thank you list, no sentiment, because the work speaks for itself. Unforgiven is the anti-Superman. It's a film about a man with power who uses it and regrets every moment. A man who wants to be good but can't escape what he is. A man who saves people by becoming a monster. That's the role Clint chose instead of Superman, and it defined him more than any cape ever could. Over the next 30 years, Clint keeps making films. Mystic River, $1 Million Baby, Letters from Iwo Jima, Gran Torino, American Sniper, The Mule, each one different, each one exploring violence, morality, consequence, redemption. None of them about superheroes, all of them about humans. In 2006, a journalist asks Clint about the Superman decision, about whether he regrets turning down what became one of the most iconic roles in film history. Clint thinks for a moment. Then he says, Superman doesn't die. He doesn't fail. He doesn't lose. That's comforting for audiences. But it's not true. Real people die, they fail, they lose. And those are the stories I want to tell, the ones that hurt because they're true. But Superman made hundreds of millions of dollars. You could have been part of that. I've made plenty of money. What I wanted was to make films that mattered, films that showed the cost of power, the weight of violence, the impossibility of being good. Superman can't show you that, because Superman is always good. He's always right. And in my experience, nobody is always right. We're all just trying to survive, trying to be better than we were yesterday, and mostly failing, so you don't regret it. Clint smiles. It's a rare smile, not wide, not performative, just a small acknowledgement. I've never regretted a single decision I made about my career, because every decision was about one thing: telling the truth. And Superman, as much as I respect what that character means to people, isn't the truth. He's a symbol. And I've never been interested in symbols. I'm interested in men. Christopher Reeve, who became Superman, died in 2004. Paralyzed from a horse-riding accident, he spent the last years of his life advocating for spinal cord research. He became a different kind of hero, not the invulnerable god, but a man who faced real suffering with real courage. When Reeve died, Clint sent a private letter to his widow. Nobody knows what it said, but those who knew Clint could guess. It probably said something about respect, about how Reeve took a role that could have been empty and filled it with humanity, about how he made Superman real by suffering in ways Superman never could. That's who Clint Eastwood is, the man who turned down the role everyone wanted because he understood something most people don't. That greatness isn't about invulnerability, it's about vulnerability. That heroes aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail and keep trying anyway. In that Warner Brothers office in 1977, Clint Eastwood made a choice. He chose truth over spectacle, humanity over mythology, complexity over certainty. And that choice defined not just his career, but an entire approach to storytelling. Superman flew. Superman saved the world. Superman never doubted himself. And that's beautiful. That's inspiring. That's what we want to believe is possible. But Clint Eastwood chose to show us what is possible. Not flight, not invulnerability, not moral certainty. Just men trying to survive their own choices, trying to be better than they are, trying to find some kind of redemption in a world that rarely offers it. He chose William Money over Clark Kent, Dirty Harry over the Man of Steel, the broken cowboy over the perfect hero. And in doing so, he created a legacy that transcends any single role. A legacy built not on fantasy, but on the painful, complicated, beautiful truth of being human. That's the choice. That's the cost. That's what it means to refuse the role everyone wanted and make the films nobody asked for. On that Tuesday morning in 1977, Clint Eastwood walked out of Warner Brothers without Superman. He walked out with something more valuable: his integrity, his vision, his refusal to be anything other than what he was. A filmmaker who believed that the truth, however uncomfortable, was always worth more than comfort. And 40 years later, when people remember Clint Eastwood, they don't wonder what he would have looked like in a cape. They remember Unforgiven. They remember Gran Torino. They remember a man who used his power not to fly, but to dig deep into the darkness of human nature and find, occasionally, something worth saving. That's not Superman. That's something better. That's real. If this story resonates with you, if you believe that truth matters more than spectacle, that humanity is more powerful than mythology, consider staying. There are more stories like this, stories about choices that define us, about moments when saying no is braver than saying yes, about people who refuse to be what everyone wants them to be and become something far more valuable, something true.